A heart turned to God. Naaman was not an emotional leper. Pride did not rule him or disfigure his decisions. Leprosy did not impact Naaman's heart. His heart was not hardened. Naaman's decisions were not impacted by leprosy. Leprosy was not his legacy. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 15. After dipping into the Jordan River 7 times, Naaman's skin was a reflection of his heart. Naaman's skin was soft and new like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Naaman returned to the man of God with his company. Everyone saw the miracle. The miracle not only happened to Naaman, but his entire company saw the power of God at work. Leprosy was not his legacy. Naaman now turned back to the man of God to declare, And I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Miracles will get your attention, but it's God who turns the heart. Now Naaman wanted to honor the moment and the healing that had taken place, and give Elijah a gift. Elijah refused, but he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 16. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servants will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 17. Naaman was not only physically healed from leprosy, his heart had turned from worshipping other gods to serving the true and living God of Israel. Naaman divorced the idols that he had bowed to and worshipped in the past and chose to worship the true and living God. In this thing the Lord pardoned thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardoned thy servant in this thing. 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 18. Naaman's heart turned away from worshipping false gods. Notice this critical heart statement that Naaman had made concerning his secular activities as the commander of the Syrian army. Naaman asked that the Lord pardon him when his master the king leans upon his hand and goes into the house of Rimmon to worship. Naaman makes the distinction between his master, the king who goes into the house of Rimmon to worship his idol, versus who Naaman worships. Naaman's heart is transformed, and now he only worships the true and living God. Notice Naaman declares, When he bows down himself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardoned thy servant in this thing. Naaman was not requesting permission to worship a false god. Naaman was not asking for a pardon to worship an idol. Naaman understood his position that he held within the army of Syria as commander. Naaman took inventory of his life and his position, both in public and private. Naaman chose to worship the true and living God, and he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 19. 2 Kings chapter 5 verses 15 to 19. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel, so please accept the gift from your servant. The prophet answered, As surely as the Lord lives whom I serve, I will not accept the thing. And even though Naaman urged him, he refused. If you will not, said Naaman, please let me, your servant, be given as much earth as a pair of mules can carry. For your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other god but the Lord. But may the Lord forgive your servant for this one thing. When my master enters the temple of Rimmon to bow down, and he is leaning on my arm, and I have to bow there also, when I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord forgive your servant for this. Go in peace, Elijah said, after Naaman had traveled some distance.